and I'm working as esports producer in my company. I'm in esports like more than 15 years, and some of these years I was focused in developing games and producing games and publishing games. So I will try to summarize not only my experience, but experience of my colleagues, what they think about esports and how the game should be developed as esports title. So just a few general words about what esport is. I think that most of you have seen these researches that esports is growing. There are big numbers about users, about revenues, and all the stuff. In general, it's gathered about how many sponsor money is put into these esports, and about what prize money are there. And actually, it's not all about the sport, but it shows that it's growing, and the main thing. That was the previous one, and yeah, so we've released a couple of weeks ago. Excuse me. Yeah. We released a couple of weeks ago our own research, and the results were that actually in Russia we have a big audience. And here are the numbers about how it goes. As a good example is the major Kyiv tournament from Dota 2 and Valve, which we showed to our audience. More than 45 million people watched it. That's a huge number actually, and some have, let's say, skeptics about these numbers, but they are real, and that says that actually this content is really appreciated not only by Twitch users, but also with our VK and OK users who watch video much. But let's talk about what esports is in general. We can't say that it's only the game. We can't say that only tournaments are about esports. There are different elements of market and elements about who does it. Sure, there are developers. They are making games and publishers. Yeah, sometimes that's one union. But again, these people are interested in making their title more presented in board for audience in different ways. There are teams who participate in events and are trying to get prize money, trying to get audience whom they sell their merchandise and everything like this. There are organizers of tournaments, people who are making events, who are making leagues and trying to get money from sponsors. Sure, they can't work in the real world and the modern world without guys who are doing broadcasts. Actually, that's a thing that happened like starting from 2010 and 2011 year, when such companies as Twitch appeared and broadcasting started developing much. And nowadays, again, back to our report, there are people who are watching esport games or other games, not even playing it. And the number of these users is increasing. And in some countries like Western and even in China, the numbers are much higher now than in our country. But again, we are quite young. And in our country, only 12% of people are just watching game, not playing it. And just a few words more about this. These are youngsters. And that means that in a few years, these people are going to take much more percentage of your audience who are watching your game, not playing it. With broadcasters, there are talents. There are casters, streamers, however you call them. These guys are making content for your audience, for other gamers, and they are opinion leaders too, same as teams and pro players. Nothing will work without infrastructure. Infrastructure, that's a vast term, and that means that you've got your tournament system, you've got such things as we do as a company. For example, we've got VK and OK video platform. So that's an infrastructure for broadcasters for sure. There is infrastructure in some games and some even countries for big events as stadiums, esports stadiums now called. Other things is more about betting and fantasy leagues. That's a side project for esports actually, but that makes money for them and makes interest for players and for viewers to watch your tournaments. And sure, we can't work without media, who is presenting your game and your audience, your players for others. So altogether, that makes the ecosystem about esports. And you, as a developer, as a publisher, you can focus on something specific or take everything. It only depends on your size and your budget and about the size of your game. But let's talk about general rules about how the game can be a sport. Actually, there are some general things like making possible players to play a fair game between each other. That means that me as a player has to play against other player, or me as a team with my guys have to have the same rules and the same conditions that as other team has. So our game should be fair, and you should make this thing in a game. That doesn't mean that there are no power items which I can buy and win, but that means that other team should have the same possibility to get these items. And in other words, you should be wise in your rules and regulations about how it's done. Another side, to make this possible to play such a match, you should have a possibility to create a custom match. It's quite hard to find an opponent in your matchmaking if it's random. It should be possible to select your opponent, and play against him. And the third thing, and actually I can say that again, that in the modern world, you can't avoid this. People are watching your game, and there should be possibilities to watch your game. Let's say there are certain tools that can make broadcasts from your game without in any spectator mode in it. But given possibility and tools for observer mode, replays and demos, you will create a much easier way to make your game being watched. Again, these are just the general things and that's a start for your game to be presented as a sports title if you want. My opinion that even if you don't say that your game is a sport, please don't put some effort to make this thing happen and develop them. Sure, there are tons of details which can be letters and ratings. People are really fond of seeing how they progress. They really want to see what places there are, who they can beat, and all other rules. Regarding esport teams, they should practice again, replace director mode for broadcasting things, such things as automatic highlights and everything like this. That all these things will make it easier for your players to show them and to see other players how they actually play. Previous speech was also about APIs that guys lost them. That's an issue, and actually APIs will again help and make it easier for your players and for your viewers to understand what's going on, to get more information, to get statistics, to get even items from your game. Actually, if you watch some world championships from Valve, for example, like Counter-Strike or Dota, you will see that there are drops. And drops are automatic. if you do it by your own hands, it will take millions of your people, and actually it won't be very efficient. But such maybe not easy things like APIs will help you much. Also, good examples, again, as Valve does, are customized items. And the way how they produce it, and actually they not always produce it themselves. They give tools for players to produce these items, and then they get it and sell it to others, and making this like economy efficient. And again, one more thing to show players their personality and all the stuff will make them participate more in these events and be part of your game, be part of your tournaments and all the stuff like this. One of the things that some games do is sharing the profit with pro players, with teams, with some organizers sometimes, that attracts people, that actually what other wants. That's, if we talk about professional sports, we can't say that, yeah, please play, get some in-game items. No, that's not they are playing for. They are playing for money, and you should think about this. Just returning to the previous slide, I would say that that's not the whole list. Sure, there are tons of small details that you should think about this. And as a developer, you should think about how to make this content. Actually, that's a content, that's the thing you develop. There's tools, these items, and everything like this. They should be orientated for pro teams, for tournaments. Should be easier to get them, easy. And they shouldn't be very hard to produce. Just a simple example, again, to Valve skins in Counter-Strike. If you know how it works, actually that's very interesting system where it's very easy to create a unique item. You don't need to hire 10 people to create a skin for a gun, and it doesn't take months of your people, so it doesn't cost too much. And that's the thing how it works. It shouldn't be very hard to create an item which can be sold or can be whatever presented to your players. Again, if you do some competitive gaming, there should be tools to make this competition. Custom matches as one of these. Replays, observer mode. Sure, it would be much easier if you have in-game tools to make highlights. That means that with one button you can share, a player can share with others how he plays, how he performs, and as statistics says, like that's one of the priority for others who watch. They would like to watch actually how pro players are playing his game, and they would like to study, they would like to learn, they would like to know how to make it, and then try to make themselves. Sure, it's a great thing if you have a tournament system in your game. That's actually is the easiest way to convert your players to tournament players. But there are other systems, like again StarLadder, ESL, whatever, MLG, who can share these systems. Oh, our Esports.Ru do the same. We've got a system, a tournament system. You can use it, whatever. But it doesn't mean that it should be in the game. The thing is that if you have it in a game, that will make it easier to convert players. The same for APIs. Yeah, again, just one more thing. If players don't need to get a special system, tons of PCs just to make a video from the game, or just to get the statistics, whatever, and you make it possible them to get it from one button or some with even another button from API, he can put it his own page. He can work it with it during his broadcast and everything like this. Actually, don't forget about that all this stuff can be monetized. And There are several ways. The main thing is like, as example, you can sell items focused on pro teams branding and share this thing with a team. There are a lot of players that actually are fan of any team, for example, and just having a badge or whatever achievement that he can put in his gun or his skin will make him paying this. Sometimes that's the first payment, even if a player is like stays in the game for a long time, and that can be his first payment. So don't avoid to work with your monetization. And again, yeah, making a tournament, making a competitive game, think about your balance very wisely. And don't forget that actually esports is your, you can call it esports, but actually that's a high-level content for your players. When let's say 5 years ago, whatever, everyone were talking about that online games, free-to-play games are services, actually esports is service as is. You give a service to players, you give a service to teams, you give service to tournaments and everything like this. So you should be more accurate what you are doing. As a publisher, you should deal with certain things like pro players and streamers. They are celebrities. There are good and bad examples of how companies are working with these guys. We know examples when top-rated streamers and players are changing the game or trying to change the mind of developers, saying that this is good and this is bad. And actually, you should understand that most of these pro players, they know your game better than you. Maybe they don't know some special mechanics that there are in about how server works, but they know what players like, how the game could be played, how to abuse your rules. They know much more. They play like almost 24 hours per day sometimes, and they really understand what the game is. As a publisher, you should think and decide yourself whether you do tournaments yourselves or you give it to someone, whether you do tournaments in the game or you say, please, ESL or whatever, please do it for me. That's all about your budgets, about your ideas, how you're going to present it to your players. But again, that's about conversions. But be sure that most of your audience, most of your players don't know anything about your esport activities. A good example about what Dota has with its 25 million prize fund for the international. That's only a quarter of what they're gathering. From 100 million, all other people who are paying for this, for a battle pass and everything like this, they're paying not for making this prize fund 25 million, they're paying for content, they're paying for skins, they're paying for, let's say, heroes, whatever, what they want to play. And they don't care about your esport activities. They don't even watch it. They like the game, but that's fine for them if they pay, and part of these will go to prize. They're not against of it. And actually, that's good for you, because that's one more opportunity for you to monetize it and to make happy not only your esports players, but also players who are just playing your game. So that's it. And that's not only these things. Again, just one more thing about your tournaments to manage it. We found, working with a publisher, that your work time from 10 to 19 is not the thing that actually fits esports. Esports is played in the evening and weekends. So be sure that your teams, your community managers, are able to work during nights, during weekends. No one actually wants to do it, so you can hire someone else. But you should always think about this. And one more thing about monetization. And there are extra channels which you can work with, or if you don't want, just avoid this. But again, if you have a good tournament which is watched much, like say millions of people are watching your tournament, that means that there can be some sponsors or advertisers which are interested in your audience or a gamer audience. And actually, for youngsters, for people who don't watch TV and all that stuff, who have ad blockers and everything like this, it's one of the main channels to get them for advertisers. So use it wisely. If you have a good, well-known tournaments like, again, Counter-Strike and Dota has, League of Legends, whatever, you can sell your rights to other countries if you're a worldwide publisher and you have a worldwide game. Sure, there is also merchandise and other stuff which can be sold not only about your game. If you are structured well, you can sell even your merchandise from your teams which are participating in it. And again, people are watching players, people are watching teams, not only your game, and they're a fan of purchasing this merch. Again, to your esport items which can be sold in your game, that can be your extra monetization. It sometimes takes money from a normal user who could spend it for just buying your weapon or skin, whatever, but also it attracts other people who never buy something about in-game power. They would like to get some customized stuff, whatever. So just don't think that esports is only the thing that you put your money in. Try to think that it can give you money, but again, as any business, it sometimes needs your investment. As a publisher, as a developer, you should create your own tools, you should create possibilities for others to make money on it. Fantasy leagues is just a part of esports, but again, as a normal sport, it gives other players who are not in tournament, or are not, but who are watching your tournament to be more, let's say, not attracted, but more motivated to be your fan. And some betting and like this stuff, it's not very fair, some can say, because young people are spending their money and losing their money. But again, if your game is more about being for older ones, and you understand that it's fine for your audience to have a betting in there, you can try it too. So, in general, these are all, let's say, first steps of making your game esports. There are different ways to monetize it, to attract people, and to make them happy. And from my side about this presentation, that's all. And if you like to ask any question about how it works and what works better and everything like this, I can tell you. Just to finalize, again, I will repeat the words of a previous speaker. Players who participate in your tournaments, who are watching your tournaments, who actually are your high-level players, they really spend much more money, like 5 to 10 times more than an average player in your game. And please, make service for them good and well working. So please, if you have any question, you can ask English, Russian, whatever.